The last time we featured Antec on the channel was when we reviewed the Torque chassis, which was almost 5 years ago. Well, today we're looking at another Antec case, but this time it's a little more civilized, because the Constellation C8 that is in for review features a dual chamber layout, which is becoming the common choice of new case design. But can the C8 compete with other dual chamber chassis that we've reviewed recently? Let's find out. So the Antec Constellation C8, it's available in two different colours. You can get it in black or you can get it in this white version. It's available in the US from places like Newegg for around $129. In the UK, you can pick it up from Scan, priced at about £99. Also available on Amazon, slightly more expensive, around £110. The Antec Constellation C8 is a dual chamber chassis featuring tempered glass with 45-degree bevel edges for a seamless joint and fully transparent panoramic view of the internal components. The C8 can accommodate 320 or 140mm fans in the floor and roof for powerful and efficient cooling. The case supports the installation of three 360mm radiators simultaneously, vertical GPU mounting and modular drive trays. So let's take a look at the Antec C8 a little more closely. All the side panels can be removed tool-free. Start by removing the tempered glass side panel, just push it out from the back and then it lifts out. As you can see, there's no real tint on that glass, just completely clear. Once you've got the side panel removed, you can also remove the front. Again, tool-free, just pulls out from the top and then lifts out. And again, that is a completely clear tempered glass panel, no tint to the front either. The top panel can be removed in a similar way to the side panels. Lift it out at the back and it just releases from the quick release fittings. You can see this is a large vented mesh panel, ultra-fine mesh, so there's no dust filter in the top. And then same again for this right hand side panel, pull it out from the back, releases from quick release fittings, and this is a completely mesh panel too. No dust filter on this because it's ultra fine mesh, but it is a completely mesh vented side panel. This small panel on the front of the case can also be removed. There's several screws to take out to remove that, but there's no real reason why you would need to remove that for installation because everything is accessible with that panel in position. The front I/O on the top of the case consists of two USB 3.0 Type A ports, one USB Type C port, a combined 3.5mm audio jack, and power and reset buttons. Inside the case there's a lot of the usual options, so it supports motherboards up to eATX 280mm wide. Obviously that also includes standard ATX, micro ATX and ITX boards. It also supports CPU coolers up to 175mm tall, graphics cards up to 440mm long, which sounds like enough length for any of the current cards on the market. Even the biggest RTX 4090 cards should fit in the case, no problems. It also supports power supplies up to 210mm long. There's plenty of space inside the case for cooling. However, a thing that I like to see in this case is removable radiator and radiator fan brackets. None of the brackets in this case are removable, which is a bit of a shame. The floor, the roof and the side bracket are all fixed in position. At the top of the case you can fit up to 320mm fans or three 140mm fans, or up to a 360mm radiator, so 360, 280, 240, 140 and 120 radiators. Same on the floor, up to 320mm fans or 340mm fans. The floor mount comes with a bracket installed for 140mm fans. However, you can remove a few screws and replace that with an extra 120mm fan bracket that's included in the accessories pack. And then down the side panel, you can install either three 120 or two 140 fans, or up to a 360mm radiator. So in total you can install three 360mm radiators simultaneously. You are restricted with the depth of the radiators and fans. At the top the maximum depth is 70mm, on the side it's 100mm, and on the floor it's up to 135mm. At the very least you should be able to run push-pull fans on a radiator on the floor and on the side, and possibly get away with it on the roof if you're just using a standard 25 or 27mm thick radiator. The rear of the case also allows another fan installation, so on here you can either fit a 120 or a 140 fan or up to a 120mm radiator. Another good thing that I like about this that was missing from a case that I reviewed recently is you can install 120 or 140mm fans all round in the chassis. Some cases only allow 120mm fans on the side mount, which is okay, but it's better for the aesthetics at least if you can fit 120s and 140s all round. At the back of the case you have 8 PCIe slot cutouts. These can be completely removed and then the slots are completely open, so potentially you could use a vertical GPU mount in there once all these slots are removed. There isn't one included with the case, and I don't see one as an optional accessory, but you can buy them separately. There's also plenty of cable management cutouts, the usual couple up at the top, 2 down the side and 2 at the bottom of the motherboard tray. Nice to see that they are all covered with rubber grommets. Around the right hand side, so at the front of the case, you've got this section for the fans or radiators to be installed. You've got this also that says air duct partition. This can be removed, but this does kind of separate the fan and radiator side from the side where you would have the power supply, your storage drives and cable management. Maybe that helps with airflow, keeps it more directional to the radiator. There's no airflow lost into areas where you don't want it to go. To remove that panel, it's just a couple of screws. So one at the top and one at the bottom. And then it just slides out. You can see that's just a steel panel. The chassis is made up of steel, tempered glass and plastic. The steel panels are between 0.8 and 1mm thickness, and you can feel it in the chassis as well. It does feel quite stiff and quite rigid, the chassis. Something else I like to see in white cases are white cables. Antec has put all white cables for the front ports and the front I/O, which is good. You've also got several Velcro straps. There's a few extra Velcro straps in the accessories pack. The power supply fits up at the top of the chassis here. You can get ATX up to 210mm long. That's not including the cables. So a 210mm unit plus cables will fit in no problem. Around this side of the case, there's also room for storage. So there's a removable drive cage at the bottom below the power supply. There you can install up to 2 3.5-inch drives. Remove a couple of screws from the rear of the case and that drive cage is completely removable. You've also got 2 2.5-inch drive mounts. So there's one on the floor, one on the roof. These are just held in position with a single thumb screw. Remove the screw and the drive cage slides out. In each of these drive cages you can fit 2 2.5-inch drives, so 4 in total. As with most dual chamber cases, around this compartment you have got plenty of cable management space, up to 90mm of depth for cable management there, which is absolutely loads. Shouldn't have any problem managing cables in this case. Various cutouts that you pass cables through from the other side, all with rubber grommets on, and there's also points to tie down, so eyelets to zip tie cables to. There's an additional Velcro strap up here. As I said, the main channel down the center of this chamber, there's 3 Velcro straps there. So I don't see that cable management will be difficult in this case. Plenty of space by the looks of it, in both sides of the case to work. Let's flip the case round to the back. As I said earlier, there's a 120 or 140mm mount at the top for fans. Rear I/O cutout for the motherboard, 8 PCIe slots, and then at the side of that is the mount for the power supply. Power supply is inserted from the side and then screwed in from the back. There's a couple of eyelets here for maybe strapping down the power cable and the rear I/O cables if you want to neaten up the cable management outside of the system. The only removable dust filter in the system is on the floor of the case. That just slides out from the front. It's a nylon dust filter on a plastic frame, looks like decent quality. With that removed, the floor of the case is very open. You can see the 120 and 140mm space for mounting fans and radiators. On each corner of the case there are feet with rubber anti-vibration pads, and these are about 20 to 25mm high, so it should give you decent airflow and decent ground clearance for airflow into the bottom of the case.
If you're looking for a new chair, then you should definitely check out Booley's. I'm currently sat on their Ninja Pro gaming chair, which which is one of 3 models from their gaming series alongside the Elite and the Master. So if you're looking for something new to stick in your setup that you can sit on and game and work, then I recommend definitely checking out boolies.co.uk.
The test system specification used in the Antec C8 is an Intel Core i9-14900K CPU. Motherboard is a Gigabyte Z790 Aorus Pro X. Graphics card is a Gigabyte RTX 4080 Aero OC. Memory kit is a Corsair Dominator Titanium DDR5 7000 kit. It's a 48GB kit, 2 24GB modules. And for storage, I've just used a single M.2 drive. It's a 2TB Seagate FireCuda 530 PCIe Gen 4 NVMe M.2 SSD. CPU cooler is a EK-Nucleus AIO CR360 Lux DRGB, it's the white version. Power supply is a Seasonic Vertex GX140, also in white. It's fully modular, ATX3 and PCIe 5 ready. And the fans in the system are the Corsair QX140s. As you can see, the build's complete. I've got a couple of good and bad points to talk about with the Antec C8. The good outweighs the bad with this one, but first let's take a quick look at the thermal performance. As always, the thermal load is a combined Cinebench R23 and 3D Mark Speedway stress test run simultaneously for 30 minutes. If you want to check out the full testing methodology, head over to kitguru.net where there is a full written review page for the Antec Constellation C8. Changing the case configuration has very little impact on thermal performance with the Antec C8. Both the CPU and GPU temperatures remain consistent when removing panels and repeating the thermal load test. The only minor change in temperature is recorded when the top and right hand panels are removed. The CPU temperature in this configuration drops by a couple of degrees C. So the perforated panels may be causing a minor airflow restriction, but the temperature change is minimal, so it's nothing to be concerned about. These component temperatures seen are typical of the test system hardware and what we would expect from a well ventilated dual chamber case. It's a similar pattern with noise output too. In either configuration, the noise output is very constant. Removing panels has little effect on noise output, but there is a minor drop in noise when removing the perforated top and side panels, as the CPU cooler fans ran at a slightly lower RPM. So I'm quite pleased with how the build went in the Antec C8. It's a really easy case to build a system in. Everything's placed where you'd expect it. The cutouts for cable management, things like the alignment of the screw holes for motherboard standoffs, installing the graphics card and aligning that with the screw holes. It all works really well. One thing worth mentioning is the side fan mount, and it's a pet hate of mine when I see things like this where the case manufacturers have got the dimensions for a feature but choose to ignore it for some reason. So on the side mount, it's only officially supporting up to 2 140mm fans, but you can quite clearly see in this test system I've managed to fit 3 140s in there. I had to modify the mount slightly, drill a couple of extra holes for the top screw holes for the top 140mm fan. It's not the prettiest job in the world, but if I had a bit more time I would have de-riveted that side mount panel, got it on the bench and done it a bit more accurately and a bit neater. But it just shows that you can actually fit 340mm fans in there if the mount was designed for it. I don't understand why, if the dimensions are there, why not put that into the case? It seems like a strange decision to leave that out if it is physically possible. You do have to just remove the top I/O, just move that slightly out of the way to get into those top screw holes, but it's not a big deal because the I/O on this is really easy to remove. The only other negative I can see with the case is that there's no removable fan brackets either. I would have liked to have seen at this price point the top and bottom fan brackets being removable. It is a little easier sometimes to install the fans on your bench or your work area and put the whole unit with the fans and the bracket into the case afterwards. If for any reason you need to change fans in the future, means with the floor fans you have to tip the case on its side. It's not ideal doing that if you've got the system fully loaded with hardware. It's quite heavy. You've got the potential of scratching the case if you're not careful enough, or even scratching your desk or your worktop that you're working on. So I would like to have seen at this price point removable brackets at least for those top and bottom fan mounts. The case is priced well compared to some of its competition. So something like the Corsair 6500X, which is a very similar case to this. It has some real close similarities to the C8, and that's priced at around £70 more than this. I can't see why you would buy that case over the C8 unless you needed reverse connector motherboard support or you were heavily invested in the Corsair ecosystem. I think this is a great alternative to something like the Lee O11 Dynamic or the Corsair 6500X if you are a bit more restricted with your budget. As well, the build quality of this is really good. It's a very high level build quality. I wasn't expecting build quality as good as this from an Antec case under £100. The reason I say that is if you remove the side and the front tempered glass panels and put pressure on the top corner, the frame of the case is very rigid, and it puts to shame some other much more expensive models when you do that kind of test with the tempered glass removed. So overall, there are some minor things that I would like changing, but it is a really good case for the money, and it's one of the better dual chamber cases that I have reviewed recently. So that's the Antec Constellation C8. Let me know what you think of the case in the comment section. If you've enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to Kit Guru, and if you enjoy what we do here at Kit Guru and you want to help support us, you can always head over to the store and pick up some merch, or you could even subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, if you want to catch up on all the in-depth technical reviews, head over to our website.